Hey everyone, welcome back to Play Travelers. My name's Stoke.
My name's Poppy.
And I'm Francie.
And today we're going to Rome.
And all the streets of Rome were filled with rubble. Ancient footprints were everywhere. Well, you could almost think that you see it double. On a cold, dark night on the Spanish Pier, got her on back to the hotel.
Under the Emperor Vespasian, the Colosseum began its construction in 72 AD, and it was later finished by his heir Titus in 80 AD. And the Colosseum could hold up to 50,000 to 80,000 spectators. The shows would include gladiator fights, animal hunts, executions, and they would even fill the Colosseum up with water so they could have mock naval fights. So we are sitting right here where the senators would sit, and which is right by where all the gladiators were. So all of these walls right here, these stone walls, there would be a platform over it, usually covered in sand, right?
Yeah.
And that's where all the like fights, gladiator fights would happen. And the stone walls, though, which are underneath, like the underground, would be where the animals are stored that are in the gladiator fights, and also the gladiators, and it's for getting ready for their fight. This is over there where all the people are, or where the emperor sat, and then the level above them would be the rich citizens. Above them would be the townspeople, and then the next level up would be the homeless people, the slaves, and the women.
We're in the Roman Forum right now. It's a rectangular forum, which is also known as a plaza, and it's surrounded by many ancient government buildings. And it was used for triumphant processions, public speeches, gladiator fights, criminal trials, and it is one of the most famous meeting places in the world. And we actually are at the place where Julius Caesar himself was cremated.
Where I got me a day, Botticelli's knees.
Alright, here we are. We just walked down the Via Sacra, which is the sacred path, which is the main road through the Forum. And the stones are really quite amazing. You can see them. They were polished by water. The Romans were using the gravity-fed system to be able to polish the stone that they learned from the rivers. And it was pretty amazing to realize we were walking in the footsteps of people like Julius Caesar and Constantine and all the great emperors and senates and all the evil ones as well that were here in the Forum. And now we're going to make our way up to the Palatine Hill and watch the sunset from up there. So why don't you come join us?
The Palatine Hill, which we're walking on right now, is the most famous hill of the 7 hills in Rome. And at the top of it is where the cave is that the she-wolf that raised Romulus and Remus used to live in. According to Roman mythology, Romulus and Remus were twin brothers who supposedly founded Rome. The tale of the brothers begins with their abandonment. They were placed in a basket to float down a river, where a she-wolf found them and raised them until a shepherd took them in. As adults, Romulus and Remus wanted to build a city, but they had a disagreement on where to build the city. The argument was so bad it resulted in Remus's death. Romulus continued building the city without his brother and ended up naming the city Rome after himself.
We are in the Vatican City, and the Vatican City is controlled by the Pope. Pope Francis is the Pope right now, and it contains, this museum contains the most treasured artwork in the world, and we're excited to get to go see it and recognize how much time and effort it went into the curation of all of these amazing pieces of artwork. So here we go.
The Dark Ages were during the first half of the Middle Ages, around the time 500 to 1000 AD. The Dark Ages were referred to as dark because historians don't have many written records from that time period. The Renaissance came after the Dark Ages, between the time 1400 and 1700 AD, and it was considered the time of rebirth of art and science and technology. Here in the Vatican are the Papal Apartments. This is where Pope Julius II commissioned Raphael to paint the Stanza della Signatura, which was the library. It is within these four walls he painted some of the most celebrated frescoes of the High Renaissance, between 1509 and 1511. The four walls represent the four pillars of human knowledge: the philosophy, theology, poetry, and justice. My family's favorite wall was philosophy, with the painting of the School of Athens. The image depicts the greatest thinkers, philosophers, mathematicians, and scientists sharing knowledge and teaching each other. It is in this room where human knowledge and the church are united through Raphael's exquisite frescoes. In the center of the painting is Plato and Aristotle. Plato on the left has his hand pointed to the sky or air. This, as we know by the book he holds. Timaeus represents the ethereal, things that can't be seen or touched but are the absolute truth. The colors of his robe also show us his philosophy of the ethereal, as red represents fire and purple the air. It is notable that the thinkers on Plato's side of this beautiful geometric hall support this philosophy. Even the statue on this Platonic side is the god Apollo, who is the god of poetry and music, which personifies this idea of thinking. On Plato's right is his student Aristotle, whose palm is pointing to the earth, representing things that are more observable. In Aristotle's hand is one of his own books, the Ethics, which talks about things of the physical world that is the opposite of ethereal. Just like Pluto, Aristotle's robe colors symbolizes what he studies: brown for earth and blue for water. The thinkers on the right, along with the statue on the right wall, is Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare. All of the above think as Aristotle, and they learn and teach the actual. From the library of Pope Julius II to the Sistine Chapel, which some of you might know holds the best work of Michelangelo.
She promised she'd be right there with me when I paint my masterpiece.
The Pantheon was originally built as a temple for the gods and is now used as a church. And nearly 2,000 years after the Pantheon was built, it is still the world's largest unreinforced stone.
Waste time. All those mighty kings of the jungle, I can hardly stand to see them. But it sure has been a long, hard climb.
Here we are at the tomb of Raphael, which is perhaps my most favorite Renaissance painter and architect of all times. And it was a surprise to us that he is here in the Pantheon. We didn't know that, so it's one extra treat. And you can see the Madonna in stone above, which is just absolutely exquisite.
The back of my memory,
Piazza Novana was built in the 1st century AD. A piazza is an open place in the heart of a traditional town, also known as a town square. Piazza Novana in Roman times was called Cinque Gonades. It was an area where the ancient Romans used to gather to watch the games.
St. Peter's Basilica is located in Vatican City, which is within the heart of Rome. The basilica was designed by mainly 4 architects: Bramante, Michelangelo, Mindarno, and Bernini. It is the largest church in the world. In front of the basilica is St. Peter's Basilica Square, and looking out over the square are statues of the apostles. Most notably are Peter and Paul. St. Peter's tomb is located in the basilica. There are also many beautiful paintings, mosaics, and sculptures. La Pietà, the Pity, is a famous sculpture by Michelangelo, created in 1498 to 1499, which depicts Mary holding her son Jesus after he was taken down from the cross. It is a common theme in Michelangelo's and other Renaissance artists' work.
Landed in Brussels for the fight. So Bobby thought I must cry. With the man in uniform, young girl with muscles, with the show had been alright. Newspaper men eating candy, had to be held down by big police. Someday everything gonna be different when I paid my masterpiece. Someday everything gonna be different when I paid my masterpiece.
The Trevi Fountain was designed by an Italian architect, Nicola Salve. The fountain was then completed by Giuseppe Panini in 1762. After 30 years of building, it is the largest Baroque fountain in Rome, and is one of the most famous fountains in the world. The Baroque period was a period between the 17th and 18th century. Moses is a well-known biblical figure, and his story is fascinating from the very beginning. In ancient Egypt, the Pharaoh ordered all Hebrew boys to be killed. Being Hebrew, Moses' mom hid him in a basket and set him down the river, where the Pharaoh's daughter found him and raised him in secret. When Moses was older, he killed a slave master who was mistreating a Hebrew slave, after which he ran in fear of his life. As the story goes, he went to Mount Sinai, where God spoke to him in the form of a burning bush, telling Moses to go back to Egypt to free the Hebrew. He did as he was told and came back to Mount Sinai, where he received the 10 Commandments, also known as the 10 Laws of Man. Then Moses led the Israelites within the sight of the Promised Land, across the Red Sea and through the desert, which took 40 years. Moses died at 104 before entering the Promised Land, but was hailed as the savior of the Israelites. This sculpture of Moses began as commissioned work between Pope Julius II and Michelangelo in 1513. The Pope wanted Michelangelo to build his tomb that would include 20 life-size statues, with the Pope being on the top. Armed with only a chisel and a hammer, Michelangelo created this exquisite piece of art, Moses. In his right arm he is holding the stone containing the 10 Commandments. The horns on Moses' head were likely due to a mistranslation of the time where Moses was described as having horns, but this description may have been mistranslated from the word that means rays of light. In the middle of building his tomb, Pope Julius II stops Michelangelo from his work sculpting to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. After completing the chapel, Michelangelo went back to work to complete the commission of the Pope's brilliant tomb.
Fire on the mountain. Fire. Fire on the mountain. Fire. Fire on the mountain. Fire. Fire on the mountain.
Hey folks, we are here in Pompeii in a parking lot that is clearly multi-purpose because it is full of orange trees, and we're getting ready to tour Pompeii, which happens to be in the Bay of Naples or Napoli, and where in 79 AD Mount Vesuvius erupted and covered Pompeii. Many of you know the story. So we're going to go check out the archaeological site and see what we can see.
Pompeii was so well preserved because 2 meters of ash descended upon the city when Vesuvius erupted. Nearly 1700 years after Pompeii was covered in ash, archaeologists began to excavate the ruins of Pompeii. And while they were excavating, they found nearly 2,000 bodies, and they were able to preserve some of them. So we just woke up. We camped last night after driving like an hour or so south from Pompeii, and we are on the Amalfi Coast. And it's raining right now, so I don't think we're going to do any climbing today, sadly. But hopefully tomorrow. Punta Campanella is the place where Odysseus founded a sanctuary dedicated to Athena Minerva. Looking out on the crater bay were the tales of many great gods and heroes, such as Odysseus, the Argonauts, the Sirens, Hercules, and Aeneas, are believed to have originated. As some of you may know, my family and I love our classical Greek history.
We'll coexist.
Long distance runner, what you holding on for? Caught in slow motion in a fall to the floor. The flame from your stage is spread to the floor. You give all you have, but you wanna give more. The more that you give, the more it will take. To the thin line beyond which you really can't fake. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain.
Since we were driving through Florence on our way home to Kumar, we decided to stop for a night. David is a 17-foot statue that was sculpted by Michelangelo. David is a famous biblical character. During the 11th and 12th century BC, the Philistines came in conflict with the Israelites. For 40 days, Goliath, the champion for the Philistines, challenged the Israelites in single combat. No one would fight the 9-foot giant until one day David accepted the challenge. David, armed only with his courage, his faith in God, and his sling and stone, confronts Goliath. With a single stone, he brought down the giant and wields Goliath's own sword against him, cutting off his head. After Goliath was slain, the Philistines retreat. Sorry. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video.
And as always, make sure to like and subscribe below. And thanks for traveling with us today, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao!